Good morning.
Morning.
Welcome to our council meeting for this, the 6th of June, officially winter. And a very warm welcome. And this morning, it's a pleasure to welcome back Jocelyn Stevens from the Life Point Church. Come and join us, please, to open our meeting this morning.
Good morning, and thank you once again for the privilege of being able to come and pray for the nation. So let's pray. Father God, I thank you for these people around this table. Thank you for their joint wisdom. Thank you for the hours they put in making our community what it is. And I pray for them this morning, Father God, that you would grant them even extra wisdom. Where there are differing of opinions on the way to move forward, I pray you find a way for them. And I pray every rich blessing on them and their families. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Oops. We're in a small church, Life Point. We've probably, if we counted everything that moved ever, we could get up to 60, but we sit around about the 30 to 40 on a Sunday. And we've got some exciting things happening at the moment. We are just in the process of signing a memorandum of understanding with the Community Trust for sale of half of our land. And we have a section at the back of the church that is horses graze on at the moment. So that's very exciting for us. And we will probably be doing joint with what we're going to do for the church's finances on the other half. So that's one thing. The other thing is in a joint venture with Keep Fielding Beautiful, we now have a shared pantry at our gate, and that is going really, really well. The whole time I'm in my office, I hear cars coming, dropping food off, 5 minutes later, it's on. So, and now we have just recently started doing meals 4 nights a week, 5:30 to 6:30, I think it is. Just for people who are needy, and we've been feeding up to 20 or 30 one night. So that's us for this time. Bless you all. Have a great meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn. And thank you to you and the rest of your congregation for the work and the service that you provide to our community. It is appreciated.
Thank you very much.
This morning, I'd also like to acknowledge 2 of our local residents who received King's Honours in the recent announcement, Lance Berry from Rongatia, who many of you know, and also to Wing Commander Mark Whiteson, based out at Ohakia. So congratulations to both of those, well deserved. Moving on, apologies, none. We have a full team this morning. Confirmation of minutes, page 6. We have a recommendation. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Ford.
Your Worship, I move that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 16th of May 2024 be adopted as a true and correct record, and that the minutes of the council meeting held the 23rd of May 2024 be adopted as a true and correct record.
Thank you. Have a mover, have a seconder. Councillor Quigley. Thank you. No discussion. Put the motions. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Motions are carried. Thank you. Item 4, declarations of interest. Anything on our agenda today that members may wish to declare? None? Excellent. Right, we have no public forum, no presentations or later items, so we can move direct to item 9. This is our committee and group meetings. They are for your information. As you know, the full minutes for each of those are on the website. The link is there. This is an opportunity for liaison councillors to highlight anything in their community that they work with this morning. So, Colleton, Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you. Nothing new. They're still just working through the priorities for the plan for the community.
Thank you. Councillor Hadfield, Glenarua Taikaria.
My colleague, Councillor Quarry, Your Worship, will be attended on my post.
Thank you, Councillor Quarry.
Yeah, the main problem they had was potholes, but I'll speak to that later today. They had some reoccurring potholes that need addressing.
Thank you. Halcombe, Councillor McFadden.
Thank you. Thank you, Worship. They're busy doing their annual winter dinner, which have got a record attendance coming for Saturday night of 72 people, so great community event. Other than that, it's just normal stuff.
Excellent. Hamatangi Beach, councillor Quarry.
Yeah, once again, there's a couple of issues down there that haven't been addressed. I think it's probably a contractor's issue. There's a sort of health and safety with regard to a grate on the side of the road that's been exposed for quite some time. Yeah, apart from that, things seem to be ticking along okay.
Excellent. Councillor Underwood, Huanui.
Huanui are moving their war memorial, and they were hoping to have it done by Anzac Day, but I don't think it came through on time. And still progressing the pathway idea, but they haven't heard back about the funding from the government yet, or NZTA. And Rongatia postponed their meeting, so theirs is next Monday because of the public holiday.
Thank you. Councillor Short, Sanson.
Thank you. Sanson, we're doing well with the installation of their bus shelter, but consultation between parties. The neighbour hasn't given permission yet. She wants to build a new fence this summer, and she's asked if the shelter could be held off until she's built her fence. She can't afford to bring it forward herself. So the funding was meant to be spent by the end of the financial year. So after all John's hard work and roading, it's had to be paused. That's very unfortunate. Also, they lost one of their members recently, and I'm sure Andrew will know Alan. He died last week. The older English fellow that used to come, he must have, I haven't heard how old he is, but I reckon he'd be late 80s probably, so he'll be sadly missed. Would you like me to do Tangi Moana?
Tangi Moana, thank you.
We're still wrapping up the Deep South project, but the other thing they're working on at the moment with our civil defence staff is updating their emergency response plan, and there's a couple of members of the community working with Nick and Hannah on that.
Excellent, thank you. So to the Youth Council, Councillor Blackmore.
The last couple of meetings have really been focused on the culture or Youth Fest, it's called, on the 6th of July. Thank you, Mayor Helen, for coming along at the last meeting and sharing your events planning wisdom. I know that was really well received, and thank you for all the contacts you sent through.
Excellent, thank you. Good updates. Right, we move on to agenda item 10.1, Fielding and District Promotion Contract. We're on page 22. So you have the papers in front of you. There is the accountability report and also the moving forward plan from Fielding and District Promotion. So welcome, Adi and Lynn.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this report outlines options for Council to consider in relation to the contract for services with Fielding and District Promotion. The value of the contract is $436,000 per annum. The report outlines that Council has contracted, I'm going to say FDP instead of Fielding and District Promotion each time, for event and promotions, for business support and advocacy and information services for a number of years. The successive contracts have included a range of performance measures requested by Council so it can measure value for money for ratepayers. The report provides a bit of history, particularly from 2020 to now, but obviously the contract has been for longer than that. The report highlights that FDP has had a range of board and leadership changes that arguably has impacted the organisation's ability to meet its contracted obligations. Council has been very supportive of FDP for that reason and for the promise of what successive boards and leaders can provide to the district following the plans that they've presented to Council. The current contract commenced on the 1st of July 2022 and was for a possible 3-year term. Like most contracts, there's key performance criteria that FDP needs to meet and report on progress each quarter. While FDP did not fully meet its KPIs for year one, council agreed to enter into the second year, this year, of the contract because council recognised that FDP had once again been subject to a relatively new board, a new chair and a new business manager during 2022. And council wanted to give the board time to form and the manager to settle. We're now nearing the end of the second year of the possible 3-year contract, and the report asks council to consider if it wishes to enter into the third year of the contract. We highlight that FDP has again not met all of its KPIs. We know that again this is in the area of producing surveys to the sectors of the community to provide FDP with anonymous feedback on their performance. However, we also point out that FDP has again been impacted by a significant change in the number of board members and the resignation of their manager during 2023. We point out that the new board has presented a remedial plan or provided a remedial plan for council that is attached, and it also outlines how it intends to address the shortfalls in performance if council chooses to give FDP the opportunity for a further year. If this is agreed, then this would be the final year of the possible 3-year contract. And council has 2 options today, and they are to either give FDP notice that it wishes to terminate the contract and Shane be given delegated authority to negotiate a termination date, or to indicate that council is satisfied with FDP's performance and wishes to enter into the final year of the contract, and that the CE will provide and officers will provide a paper to council before the 30th of September this year that provides a recommendation on the future provision for events, promotions, business support, advocacy and information services. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you. So you have the information. I'll open it up for discussions, questions, comments, please. Councillor Hadfield.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Look, clearly there's been a bit of a recurring theme has been the changes that have occurred, which are most unhelpful in any organisation, I suspect. I think, and I personally think that part of the problem is that lack of continuity, and it doesn't bode well, for people within the organisation when there's uncertainty, when there's talk about perhaps we'll do this or perhaps we'll do that, or perhaps the public office, not thinking too well today. The public, thank you, Fiona, the information centre, might go here, might go there. All of those things that sort of imply stranded overhead type scenarios are also most unhelpful. And I think it's my personal view that having invested and got to the point where we are, it would be irresponsible not to see the journey through, in my opinion. We have invested, and it's actually it's up to both FDP and the council actually to make sure that we can make the most of that investment and continue to seek improvement where we can. So, look, I support the continuation. The only thing that I might say in a proposed motion where council confirms that it's satisfied is that we perhaps should just indicate that council is mostly satisfied, because I think that fairly reflects the 1 or 2 areas where there's perhaps just not quite that level of confidence that we're quite there. But that's my view on how we should proceed. At the end of the day, the organisation, in my view, won't be in a position to actually improve, reach targets unless it's got some degree of certainty and confidence.
Thank you. Councillor Quarry.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I went on to the board of FDP some time ago when nominations were invited. Not knowing very much about what they did, I would come to fielding when an activity was on. And I find that they are a very keen, enthusiastic bunch of volunteers, and they volunteer their time to help serve our community. And that enthusiasm that they display, I'm really quite impressed with. And I know fielding is a lot better with them than without them. The KPIs that are a bit of an issue, I don't think are that important. In that conducting surveys in farmers market and so forth, very difficult to get an accurate figure as to, you know, the reason why people turn up and so forth. You look out there and see how many are there on a Friday, and that's it. And you know, to try and KPI everything that's done by FDP can be quite challenging at times, and it produces a lot of man hours, a lot of work, and really some of the results that you obtain from that would be questionable. So yeah, I'm fully in support of FDP staying as they are. Like I say, I'm quite impressed with a very keen bunch of enthusiastic volunteers doing their best to serve our community.
Thank you. Councillor Short.
Thank you. Yes, I agree. Lack of continuity doesn't help any organisation, and you've had many changes over the last 5 to 10 years, I guess. But also, I like to keep in mind, are our community getting value for money? FDP is costing us $8,000 a week. It's by far the largest of our priority service contracts. The rest of our priority service contracts, of which is probably 15 to 20 organisations, accumulatively come to the value of $280,000 per annum, and include organisations like Manchester House, Neighbourhood Support, Manawatū Rural Support Service. Now, I know the community can see the value that they get from those organisations. So my challenge to FDP for the year is prove to the community that you're worth that amount of money per annum.
Thank you. I'd also like to support the comments from Councillor Hadfield and support continuing the contract to give the organisation some certainty with the new team. And while I acknowledge that the KPIs that were set in the accountability report, some of those have not been met, I also do question the KPIs, and I'd be very keen to encourage FDP and Council to sit down and work through KPIs that are relevant and meaningful. And I also acknowledge that in some of those areas, particularly around events that FDP has supported, the fact that those organisations failed to fill in the survey is, to me, is irrelevant against the work that FDP does for those events. So it's about how do we find better ways to measure what we're doing. I know there has been questions around the business support, grassroots business support, but I'm also aware, and I hear from the business community in recent months, that has definitely stepped up. And so I'm confident that with the plan that we've received, I'm confident that we will see a change, and like Councillor Quarry, the enthusiasm from the team is to be admired. I also support changing the wording for option 2 to delete the word satisfied with the performance. So we'll get to that when we talk about the motion. Councillor Ford.
Thank you. I agree with a number of comments that have been made. The organisation certainly needs certainty to employ and retain staff. It's pretty hard to employ somebody when there's a cloud hanging over the future of the organisation. The organisation needs to achieve KPIs. It's just part of the game we're playing. But having done that, I think the most important thing is to wow the council, wow the community in terms of what you're providing, and you do in some areas. You know, full credit. There's been some magnificent events and so on. So we've probably got a bit off track. But I think you've come back with a remedial plan, which I think is really good, and that gets us back on track, and that's where we need to be. I'm a huge believer in the importance of this type of organisation, so I certainly support that. and recognise the enthusiasm that's also been mentioned. So I also support option 2, which is continuing with the contract.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, thank you. As noted in the report, we're contracting FDP for 3 main things. It's events, business networking, and operating the information centre. And as has been mentioned, the question is, how could we do it better, or should we in fact do these things at all in terms of putting ratepayer money into these things, and how much then should the community pay? But at the end of the day, I support all the comments that have been made. I think the links to the business community, direct links to the business and community, and the volunteer support that we get by contracting to FDP is invaluable. I think you can debate whether or not we get value for money, but I think we do. So look, I too would be supportive of continuing the contract.
Thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you. Yeah, like most, I support the continuation and option 2. They're mostly satisfied with the performance to date. I will just point out, I think, it is the nature of an organisation like this where you have a board that has an annual election of members. We're likely to continue to see turnover in leadership. That's again the nature, I suppose, of this sort of activity, which will continue to have an ongoing impact. And I just wanted to point to a couple of things in the remedial plan, particularly around restructure. I just question the comment around staff remuneration and the legality of changing contracts for staff members. So I'm just pointing that out to have the board check it as a plan. And it's been commented, but the collection of data surveys, whether that's with the business community or the farmers market, I'd like to see a bit of innovation around how that's done, because I think, the reality is, as citizens, we get asked for feedback about everything, several emails a day sometimes, and so I think it's pretty normal to have such a low response rate, continuing with traditional surveys in that nature. So perhaps together the council and FDP could look at some methodology and upskilling around that area.
Thank you, Councillor Quigley.
Thank you. I think I mentioned
use the microphone, please.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Reminder. Thank you. I think I mentioned before, my wife was shoulder tapped quite early, and she's been a volunteer for FDP for quite some time. And I volunteer for my wife, so I'm in there as well. And I do get a bit of behind the scenes look at what goes on, and they're actually doing a very good job, in my opinion. And they deserve to stay on. They're worth every penny of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McFadden.
Thank you, Bishop. I understand that when you want to engage with the business community, you need to be able to get them to engage back. So it's hard to actually measure that if the business community doesn't want to actually engage, and I make that point. But I do support continuation with the change of the word about satisfied. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, I'd like to move an amendment to option 2.
I just want to read it out.
To read it out, yeah. That following a review of Fielding and District Promotion Inc. for the period 1 July 2022 to the 31st of March 2024, Council confirms that it wishes to enter into the final year of the current contract with Fielding and District Promotion Inc. with revised KPIs for the period 1 July 2024 to the 30th of June 2025. And 2, Council notes that the Chief Executive will provide a paper by the 30th of September 2024 outlining a recommendation on the future provision of services after the 30th of June 2025. Do I have a seconder, please?
We have that up on the screen.
Thank you. So we are deleting the words is satisfied with the performance against the contract. So I have a mover. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor McFadden. Any further discussion? Councillor Hadfield.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Look, I think that covers off what we're talking about, and I'd just like to actually, I think a couple of points councillors Blackmore and McFadden made actually quite relevant, and one is Councillor Beekmill's comment around about performance-based remuneration. And I think knowing that we do sometimes how difficult it is to actually measure against performance indicators, that's actually can be quite tricky. And I think, traditionally we've actually seen low response from the business community. I don't want to have a crack at the business community, but I think, the business community's response to the priority thoroughfares on earthquake-prone legislation was a prime example of how difficult it is to get the business community to engage. That was a pretty significant sort of issue, so I think we need to be totally realistic in terms of our expectations about, you can always push it out, but you require something to come back. And I think those are just a couple of important points. But yeah, absolutely supportive.
Thank you, Councillor Ford.
I'm going to push back against that comment, Councillor Hadfield. I blame Fielding and District Promotion significantly for the lack of response from the business community about priority thoroughfares. I don't think they did their job, but it is deep, dark history now.
Thank you. So we've just checked the wording and realised we had two lots of wishes in there. So if we look at the wording there, that following a review of the performance of Fielding and District Promotion Inc. for the period 1 July 2022 to the 31st of March 2024, Council confirms that it wishes to enter into the final year of the current contract with Fielding and District Promotion Inc. with revised KPIs for the period 1 July 2024 to the 30th of June 2025. So I'm happy with that change of wording. Councillor McFadden, happy with that as a seconder?
Yes, Your Worship.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Otherwise, I'll put the motions. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? The motions are carried. Thank you. And thank you to the team from FDP turning up this morning. Thank you very much. We accept that we've been through a difficult period, and we wish you all the best with the plan and moving forward. Thank you. Right, let's move to page 44. We're on the Manawatū Community Trust final statement of intent. Welcome, team.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome, Marie. Marie's just going to introduce the paper to us.
Morena, just like to welcome our friends from Manawatū Community Trust, Teresa, Tracy and Victor, here to present the final statement of intent. The draft was presented to Council in March, and Council did not have any significant changes in the feedback that was given. But since then, the draft that was presented, there have been changes around the budget assumptions and accounting standards, just as further information has become available. And these are listed on page 46 in the report. And I'll hand over to the Trust to speak to the report.
Thanks, Marie. Welcome, Tracy.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Helen, councillors. It's always a pleasure to be here. So as Marie said, this is our presentation of our formal statement of intent, and that's a requirement under the Local Government Act. So it's our formal accountability and monitoring mechanism. But I'd just like to add that in addition to this formal document, we also really appreciate the informal, support that we get from elected members and from staff. It's always much appreciated. So we're really happy to answer any questions that you might have today about the statement of intent. There are a few highlights in there for us. installation of heat pumps and an extraction fan, so moving us closer towards our requirements under healthy homes. And also you might note the intention to hold a housing forum later on this year, which we've been really fortunate to have, the support of one of our board members, Miriam Baskerville, and also the support of Janine and Steph. So we're intending to hold that at the new Community Libraries Hub, which is really exciting for us. So anyway, just in regards to the budget, I'm going to hand over to Teresa and Victor, and I'm just happy to take you through that and answer any questions that you might have.
Morning. So I just wanted to talk around the SOI and in particular that just to, in case there was any questions, this doesn't include the conversation we'll be having at workshop later, so that isn't included in this SOI. So there are some changes in the SOI in terms of the targets this year, and that includes, after some discussion with our auditors, the inclusion of healthy homes compliance in there. We've specified some increase in housing, and so that's our Prince Street projects, our offices, which we are hoping to convert back into housing, and also the Corrick Court development, which I'm sure you are aware of, has been in progress for some time. Yes, and out of the research, Tracy referred to the housing forum, but also out of that research that council funded for us, we are going to be doing some analysis of how our tenants and elder community engage in the digital space and what that means for them or could mean for them in terms of health and wellbeing, if that was supported. Those are the key changes to the SOI. And, one of the challenges with those changes, and in particular around the three housing developments that we are progressing, is what that will mean for our cash flow over the next 3 years. So there is a small increase in operational expenses, as you'd expect, just with KPI, increases. But significant spend on capital projects. And what isn't obvious from the SOI is that the capital that we are planning to spend also includes around 500,000 of capital spend on our existing units in Fielding Healthcare. So some of the program of work that we have undertaken, commencing this year, is around making our existing stock more friendly in terms of the way that older people live now. So we've had a health and safety focus on that, as well as a functionality focus, I guess. So over the next 3 years, there's some specific things that we'll be targeting, and that'll be access into units, wider paths, that kind of thing, functionality in terms of more PowerPoints, just simple things like that, but also colour choices. And when we're refurbishing, we're using non-slip products for lino. We're mindful of dementia and colour choices in that respect. So in our renovations, there is quite a lot of work that are capital improvements to the housing stock, not just repairs and maintenance. I just wanted to note that because it isn't really reflected in the SOI. So going forward, we have received 1.4 million from MDC in terms of a loan that will support that capital work. We also have loans in place from ANZ that will support that work and cash flow. And one of the things that this SOI does, particularly the cash flow, does demonstrate is that our cash reserves will be used up over this next 3 years. And I just wanted to add in that while there is a deterioration in cash reserves, we also have a revolving loan, so that if there was any concern around us not being able to, manage the cash flow at the year 2027, there's still a $900,000 facility that we haven't used. So yeah, happy to answer any questions around that.
Thank you. So let's open it up for questions or comments. Mine wasn't in relation to finances. Mine was around, can you update us with your progress on the CHIP status?
Yes, yeah, I did make a note on that. So I have applied for registration as a CHIP, and the next steps on that are putting in place an agreement between Manawatū Community Trust and the new charitable trust in terms of the contracts and deed of lease that will make the cash between the two entities work successfully. And then we're also currently working on a communication plan around that transfer as well. So that'll be for key stakeholders, including our tenants and other members of the community and our staff.
Awesome. So will the fact that you're in between in that status, will that still mean you're eligible to tap into some of the funding that this new government's put out around housing?
Yeah, so timing, definitely that's the goal. But the timing is probably quite critical because there's a waiting list at the moment and it looks around 9 months before we will achieve registration. So, yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
is the answer.
Yeah, but good on you for, it's been a long journey and you're almost there.
Yes, yep, so close.
Right, let's open it up for questions, comments, please. From our team, Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, just the question on commercial rent, that's all to do with the medical centre.
That's right.
Is that on a 2-yearly rent review? Or
3 yearly.
Oh, yeah. That's why the rent staying the same in 2006 and 7. It's due.
That's right.
Is it due for a review? Must be due for a review in 2026, but you haven't budgeted for much of an increase there.
No, it was conservative. It was 3%.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that was the main thing. And then you've already mentioned the working capital and the ability to borrow. So yeah, and the fact you were looking to use up your cash, it was a bit of a worry when the cash was getting down as much as you projected. But if you've got facilities there to borrow, which you will likely need to do, I suspect.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All good.
Thank you. Councillor Underwood.
I was interested to note that your projection for increase in insurance had reduced from 18% to 10%. Could you explain what sort of information you got that indicated that that was going to be the case?
Yeah, not great information, but we did work with our insurer on that, and there's currently a review happening in terms of our insurance, but his indication was that we should target it at around 10%.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Thank you. So on page 44, we have a motion there. If I could have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Blackmore.
I move that the council agrees to the Manawatū Community Trust Final Statement of Intent 2024 to 2025.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Short. Any further discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. So once again, thank you. Thank you for coming and for your update. Really good to see that statement of intent approved, and wish you all the best with your plans, and thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you. If I could just thank particularly Lynn, Amanda and Marie. They've been really supportive recently in helping us with the SOI and some other pieces of work that we've been working on.
Great, and that's what this is about. We are a partnership, and again, we thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Right. Right, so we have no late items, so that takes us to item 12, which is our public excluded business. And I will move that the public be excluded from the following parts of the proceedings of this meeting, namely confirmation of minutes, the Fielding Civic Centre Trust recruitment, Awahuri Forest Kitchener Park trustee appointments, and release of public excluded resolutions to open session. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Ford. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Motion is carried. Thank you.